Hey everybody, welcome back to Sip&Talk. I'm Joe. And as always, I'm ready to dive into some seriously juicy info with you all today. It's like we're mixing up a knowledge cocktail here. Strong stuff, but oh, so smooth going down.
And I'm Sunny, your friendly neighborhood fact checker. I'll make sure we get all the ingredients right. Speaking of mixing things up, you know it's always a good blend? Travel whiskey and discovering awesome new things. You have to check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Yeah, Mickey's the best. He's always got something cool going on. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome back to Sip&Talk.
Hey, everyone.
Sip&Talkers, wherever you're listening from, I really need you to put down your coffee for a second.
Yeah, definitely put the coffee down. This is a big one.
Because the global doomsday clock just ticked significantly closer to midnight. We always try to balance the wild, urban legend-style headlines with the cold, hard data here.
Right, that cold and hot style we do.
Exactly. But today's reality, it is just a massive nuclear-level shock to the global supply chain. If you thought the tech inflation in 2025 was bad, today's headline is insane.
It really is a fundamental disruption. I mean, we are looking at the instant paralysis of the world's most critical maritime choke point.
It all kicked off with Trump dropping a completely unambiguous post on Truth Social.
Oh, yeah.
He stated that the Strait of Hormuz is now strictly, and I quote, nothing in, nothing out. Total blockade. Like, until Iran bows entirely on the nuclear issue, that waterway is just closed for business.
And we have to clarify right out of the gate that this is not, it's not just social media bluster. It's not political theater.
Right.
CNTCOM, the U.S. Central Command, actually confirmed that official military action is underway. The era of economic sanctions and, those cat and mouse financial games, that's over.
It's totally done.
Yeah. The U.S. military has completely tied off the main artery that handles roughly 1/5 of the world's crude oil.
Tying off the artery is such a grim but honestly accurate way to put it. The lifeblood of the global economy just got clamped shut.
Literally clamped shut.
I was looking at West Texas Intermediate Crude, WTI, and the chart looked like a vertical roller coaster.
It was wild to watch.
It surged over 14% in a single hour. Like what?
Well, when you choke off the Strait of Hormuz, you aren't just delaying a few cargo ships. You are actively rewiring the cost of energy worldwide. The market response is just pure, unfiltered panic.
Which perfectly sets our agenda today. We aren't just doing a rundown of missiles and warships. We are going to dismantle the psychological warfare and really the sheer game theory behind this blockade.
Because there is a lot of game theory happening right now.
Oh, massive amounts. Trump posted that civilization might end tonight. We need to figure out if that's a bluff or if there's a real hidden hand at play here.
Exactly.
And most importantly, for you listening at home, we need to connect the dots on how a blocked strait halfway across the world is going to spike global AI computing costs and, your everyday electricity bills.
So to understand the blockade happening right this second, we really have to rewind to the spectacular diplomatic failure that triggered it.
Right, because this didn't just happen overnight.
No, it didn't happen in a vacuum at all.
Right.
It was the immediate fallout of 21 hours of intense, ultimately doomed negotiations in a Pakistani guest house.
The Islamabad Marathon.
That's the one.
I was reading the logistics of this, and it sounds like a surreal political thriller. You had U.S. and Iranian delegates, but they couldn't even share the same airspace.
Yeah,
right?
Not at all.
Iran's delegation actually had to fly in under a Pakistani Air Force escort because the U.S. and Israel essentially control the airspace over there.
Which is incredibly tense, just to start with.
Right. And once they arrived, they didn't even sit in the same room.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you negotiate like that?
It was a strict proximity talk format. In high-stakes diplomacy, when two nations refuse to officially recognize each other's legitimacy or, they're on the brink of actual war, sitting at the same table is seen as a concession.
Oh, so just making eye contact is giving up ground.
Basically, yeah. So they spent 21 hours in separate rooms. High-ranking Pakistani leaders literally had to sprint back and forth down the hallway acting as messengers.
I'm just picturing these exhausted diplomats speed-walking with manila folders just trying to prevent World War III.
This is probably exactly what it looked like.
But it blew up in the final 5 minutes, right?
Yep.
Over two immovable concepts. Zero enrichment on the U.S. side versus the sovereign bottom line on the Iranian side.
Right.
What were the actual nuts and bolts of those demands? Because the terminology gets a bit dense.
Okay, so the U.S. delegation, which was spearheaded by J.D. Vance, brought a very maximalist demand. They wanted the total, verifiable destruction of Iran's Fordo and Natanz nuclear facilities.
Just complete teardown.
Complete teardown. And additionally, they demanded the immediate surrender of roughly 400 kilograms of enriched uranium.
Okay, let me pause you there, because 400 kilograms sounds like a lot, but I really want to understand the scale. Why was that specific number the ultimate sticking point?
Because 400 kilograms is the recognized threshold for breakout capacity.
Meaning what, exactly?
It is the exact amount of material required where, if Iran decided to sprint toward building a nuclear weapon today, the international community wouldn't have enough time to stop them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the U.S. wanted that material physically removed from the board entirely.
Got it. And on the other side, the Iranian delegation led by Abbas Araghchi looked at that and basically said, this isn't a negotiation, this is a surrender document.
Exactly. Their sovereign bottom line was that they get to keep low-enriched uranium, specifically capped at 1.5%.
Okay.
And they also wanted $6 billion that had been frozen in Qatar released as a show of good faith.
The 1.5% figure? That's crucial here, isn't it?
Extremely crucial. Iran argues that enrichment at that low level is physically incapable of being weaponized. Like, it is purely for civilian power generation. They wanted to maintain their sovereign right to civilian nuclear power.
Okay, let's put this in everyday terms for sip-and-talkers. From the Iranian perspective, the U.S. demand is like telling someone to take all the locks off their doors, hand over the keys, and maybe you'll let them inside their own house.
That's a great analogy.
It's just a complete non-starter. How could anyone agree to that?
They couldn't. The pressure was absolute. And while the delegates were physically in Pakistan trying to hash out the release of that good faith money, Trump killed the concept instantly from afar.
Just blew it up on social media.
Yeah, he posted on Truth Social right during the talks, vowing they wouldn't get a single penny. He added that if they didn't comply, they would be sent, quote, back to the Stone Age.
So those 21 hours weren't really about finding a middle ground at all.
Not really. It was a 21-hour exercise in mutual deadlock. Both sides were just confirming that neither had a political or strategic avenue to back down.
But wait, this is where I get confused, and I'm sure a lot of you listening are wondering the exact same thing.
What's that?
If the U.S. clearly has the massive military advantage, right, and Trump is publicly threatening to send them to the Stone Age, why did the U.S. bother with 21 hours of talks?
It's a fair question.
I mean, if Iran is like a skinny guy pinned against the wall by a heavyweight champion, why is the U.S. bothering to talk? Why not just knock them out and launch a preemptive strike?
To understand that, we have to look at the madman theory in political science.
The madman theory?
Yeah, the extreme public rhetoric, the threats to end civilization on Truth Social. That is a deliberate deterrence tactic. It makes the leader appear volatile and fiercely disproportionate in their responses,
right,
which theoretically scares the opponent into submission.
So basically, you act completely unhinged so the other guy doesn't dare test your boundaries.
Yes. But behind closed doors, in the Situation Room with J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and CIA Director John Ratcliffe, the process is highly methodical.
It's not unhinged at all in private.
Not at all. Trump operates with a strict cost calculator approach. They aren't avoiding a kinetic strike out of mercy. They are avoiding it because a direct, boots-on-the-ground war is far too expensive in 3 specific ways.
Okay, lay them out for me.
The first is what we call the energy trap.
Walk me through the energy trap, because my first thought is Iran can't sink a U.S. aircraft carrier in a head-to-head fight, right?
No, but they don't need to sink an aircraft carrier. In asymmetrical warfare, Iran just needs to launch a swarm of cheap, $2,000 explosive drones and hit a few very large crude carriers, VLCCs, moving through the strait.
Oh, wow. So just going after the civilian oil tankers.
Exactly. It isn't even about sinking the tankers. If a drone damages a ship carrying $100 million worth of oil, the global insurance markets panic.
Right, because who is going to insure a ship in a shooting gallery?
Nobody. The route becomes completely uninsurable, shipping halts immediately, and oil spikes to $200 a barrel. That instantly crashes the U.S. economy.
Okay, so cost number 1 is just total domestic economic ruin. What's the second cost?
The strategic black hole. Say the U.S. goes all in, destroys the regime, and topples the government.
Okay, victory, right.
Tactical victory, maybe. But you instantly trigger a massive refugee crisis that floods into Europe, which totally fractures U.S. alliances. And locally, you create a massive power vacuum for extremist groups.
Oh, I see.
The defense establishment looks at that and sees a 20-year quagmire, a total repeat of Iraq and Afghanistan. That completely violates the current doctrine of avoiding endless foreign nation building.
It's the ultimate unintended consequence.
Exactly.
And cost number 3 involves that uranium we talked about earlier, right?
Yep.
The dirty bomb threat.
Spot on. The U.S. intelligence community is acutely aware of that 400 kilograms of enriched uranium. If the U.S. launches a massive ground invasion, pushing a desperate Iranian regime to the brink of total annihilation,
they have nothing left to lose.
Right. They might take that uranium, pack it with conventional explosives, and create a highly radioactive dirty bomb as a final catastrophic act of defiance.
Just to salt the earth.
Yes. The entire goal of the Islamabad talks was bloodless disarmament. The U.S. wanted the materials handed over peacefully to avoid hunting down radioactive material in a war zone.
Man. So peaceful surrender failed. A direct ground war is too economically and strategically toxic. So we're left with the reality we woke up to today, this terrifying naval standoff.
A standoff where the old rules don't apply anymore.
Right. And it's happening in an environment where international law has basically evaporated.
Totally. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, known as UNCLS, guarantees the right of transit passage through international straits. But it has completely broken down in the Persian Gulf.
I remember reading that before this blockade, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was basically acting like modern-day pirates.
Pretty much.
They set up a maritime toll booth trying to charge ships a $1 million transit fee.
Yeah, a flat $1 million just to pass.
And the craziest part was they demanded payment in RMB or cryptocurrency to dodge U.S. banking sanctions. That is essentially treating international waters like a private toll road.
Which is a blatant violation of UNCLS. You cannot charge a toll on an international strait unless you are providing a specific tangible service like ice breaking or piloting.
So Trump countered that piracy with a total blockade, justifying it as preventative self-defense. But a total blockade by the U.S. also shreds normal maritime law. It sounds like the rule of law in the ocean right now is entirely dictated by firepower radius. Like, the law is whatever the ships with the biggest guns say it is.
That is the grim reality of geopolitics. But the firepower isn't just above the water, Joe. I mean, my friend. We need to discuss the ghost mines.
Oh, man, the ghost mines. This was the detail that absolutely blew my mind.
It's terrifying.
What exactly is a ghost mine? Because it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
So, prior to the blockade, Iran laid down a massive network of naval mines in the Strait. These are a mix of low-cost contact mines, which explode when a ship physically bumps into them, and induction mines.
Induction mines.
Yeah, they're much more sophisticated, they rest lower in the water, and detect the specific magnetic or acoustic signature of a passing massive steel hull before detonating.
But here's the punchline. Sip&Talkers. Iran laid all these explosives.
Oh, wait.
They laid all these explosives down, and then they lost the coordinates to their own minefield.
They literally lost the map.
How does a military just lose the map to a minefield?
Due to sheer logistical incompetence, combined with strong ocean currents shifting the tethered mines around, Iran no longer knows exactly where a large portion of these explosives are floating.
It's like rigging your own front yard with booby traps, losing the map, and now you can't even walk out to get the mail. So Iran locked the door and lost the key, and now the U.S. is picking the lock while trying to keep the door shut.
That's exactly what's happening. They couldn't safely open the strait right now, even if they wanted to.
Unbelievable.
And because the strait must eventually be secured to resume global commerce, the U.S. Navy is currently forced to sweep the mines themselves.
Right.
They are using literal combat ships, specifically the USS Tulsa and the USS Santa Barbara, which secretly moved into the area before the talks even ended.
Why those specific ships? Why not send in a massive destroyer to just clear the path?
Because literal combat ships have a very shallow draft, meaning they don't sit deep in the water. Plus, they have specialized hulls and acoustic masking that make them much less likely to trigger those induction mines.
So the U.S. is essentially playing high-stakes blindfolded chess, trying to clear Iran's lost mines while simultaneously enforcing a blockade. What happens if a U.S. destroyer or the USS Tulsa accidentally bumps one of those contact mines?
That is the tripwire.
Just one bump.
Just one. An accidental strike on a U.S. naval vessel during a sweeping operation is the exact flashpoint that flips a calculated blockade into the full-scale kinetic war that Trump warned about.
Which brings us to the global domino effect, because the tension in Hormuz is instantly bleeding into global markets.
Oh, absolutely.
Brent crude broke the $120 mark today.
Right.
But I want to tie this back to the tech sector because our listeners care about this. How does a maritime blockade in the Middle East jack up the cost of AI computing?
The connecting thread there is liquefied natural gas, or LNG, and the island of Taiwan.
Okay, track that for me.
Taiwan produces the vast majority of the world's advanced semiconductors. Those chips power everything from your smartphone to the massive data centers required to run complex AI models.
And fabricating those chips, especially using extreme ultraviolet lithography, requires just a mind-boggling amount of electricity.
Exactly. And Taiwan relies heavily on imported LNG to generate that power. A massive portion of the world's LNG comes from Qatar.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right now, those Qatari LNG ships are physically trapped behind the U.S. blockade in the Persian Gulf. They cannot get out.
It's a massive supply choke.
It creates an instant structural inflation crisis. The cost to generate electricity in tech hubs skyrockets. The cost to manufacture semiconductors surges. And ultimately, the cost of AI computing power goes through the roof.
And it isn't just the trapped ships either. I was reading that empty oil tankers that were heading to the Middle East are now executing incredibly expensive detours.
Yeah, they have to reroute entirely.
They are sailing all the way around the Cape of Good Hope at the bottom of Africa just to reach the U.S. Gulf Coast to treat and find alternative crude. The freight costs alone are astronomical.
And while the supply chains buckle, the geopolitical maneuvering is shifting into overdrive. China and Russia just vetoed a UN resolution regarding strait security.
Which puts China in a really fascinating bind.
Very much so.
Because they desperately need cheap oil to keep their manufacturing sector running. But this blockade is starving them of energy. I read they are actively looking into a Pakistan corridor to bypass the strait entirely by land.
They are exploring that, but a land corridor takes years to build. China needs oil today.
Right.
Meanwhile, Putin executed what you could call a masterclass in opportunistic diplomacy. He conveniently announced a 36-hour Orthodox Easter ceasefire in Ukraine, specifically for April 11th and 12th.
The timing on that is wild. Is he just trying to look like the rational peacemaker to the global south while the U.S. and Iran distract the world? Feels like a giant PR stunt.
The public face is absolutely a PR maneuver. But behind the scenes, intelligence rumors suggest Russia is actually using back channels to secretly urge Iran to cool down.
Wait, really? Why would Russia want to de-escalate? Doesn't global chaos and high oil prices help fund their own war effort?
Up to a point, yes. But remember the cost calculator logic we talked about.
Right.
If oil hits $200 a barrel, it destroys the global economy. It triggers a massive worldwide recession.
And if the global economy crashes?
Demand for everything plummets, which harms Russia's long-term plans to fund its own operations. Nobody wins in a $200 oil scenario.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And while all eyes are on Hormuz, other players are using the distraction. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu is ignoring the ceasefire entirely to push further into Lebanon.
Because regional powers always use massive international distractions to advance their own local agendas without the usual scrutiny.
It's the perfect cover. We're even seeing it cause domestic chaos in places completely removed from the conflict. Over in South Korea, the leftist candidate Lee Jae-young caused a huge diplomatic incident by sharing a fake video regarding Israel.
It just shows how volatile the global information space is right now.
Seriously, a single piece of fake media can bypass traditional diplomacy and create a crisis instantly.
Every nation is on edge, and that includes the United States domestically. Congress is currently locked in a brutal battle over a massive $200 billion defense supplemental budget.
Yeah, lawmakers are invoking war powers resolutions, terrified of being dragged into a broader conflict without congressional approval.
It's a very precarious moment.
We have covered a massive amount of heavy ground today. Sip&Talkers, we always want to be perfectly clear about our mission here. Our goal is to analyze the mechanics of global logistics, economics, and geopolitics.
Right.
We do not criticize or discriminate against any country, group, or people. We are here strictly to look objectively at the facts on the ground.
And as a quick reminder, neither of us are financial advisors. The oil prices, supply chain metrics, and economic data we discussed today are purely for context and reference.
Absolutely. Always do your own research before making any financial decisions based on geopolitical events.
For sure.
I want to leave you with a lingering thought today. As you go about your life, as you plug your phone into the wall to charge, or fire up an AI tool to write an email, Think about the invisible threads connecting us to the rest of the world.
It's all connected.
It really is. The cost of that simple everyday action might literally be decided right now by a lost mine coordinate floating thousands of miles away in the dark waters of the Persian Gulf.
It is a profound reminder of how fragile the systems we rely on truly are. Critical thinking and understanding the why behind the headlines has never been more essential.
Keep your critical thinking sharp, stay curious, and if you want to keep untangling these massive global webs with us, make sure you hit subscribe to the Sip&Talk podcast.
Please do.
And hey, while you're online, do us a favor and enthusiastically check out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel. Just search for Mickey to Life to see his latest travel vlogs. It is the absolute perfect palate cleanser after heavy geopolitical talk.
He makes great stuff.
He really does. See you next time, everyone.